It's actually kind of funny. We spend arguably the most formative years of our lives in this one very specific environment. And yet we almost never stop to actually analyze what's going on under the hood.
Right, yeah. We just sort of take it for granted.
Exactly. I'm talking about going to school. For most of you listening, it's just this universal shared experience. You wake up, you pack a bag, you go.
Yeah.
We tend to look back on it as just like a geographic location.
A place you simply went to.
Yeah. Almost like a downloading station for facts. Or maybe, a waiting room for adulthood.
Oh, man. A waiting room is an incredibly apt way to describe that feeling. Because we often view those years so passively, like we're just sitting in purgatory or something.
Just biding our time.
Right. We treat the institution merely as a vessel where, information gets deposited into our brains, just passing the time until we can eventually leave and start our quote-unquote real lives.
Right, the downloading station idea.
Right.
But today, we are completely tearing down that idea. We aren't going to look at school as a passive waiting room. We're going to look at it as an intricate, highly calibrated machine designed to shape human behavior.
Which is a much more fascinating way to look at it.
It really is. And
Right.
to do this, we're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating source text. It's titled The Growth and Purpose of the School Experience. And it basically centers on a detailed dialogue between two students, Leo and Jetro, who almost accidentally, I think, managed to decode what we might call the hidden curriculum of the school experience.
Yeah, they really do.
We're going to look at what's actually happening in the hallways during those nightmare group projects and even out on the bleachers during sports day.
And it's a brilliant way to examine the system because, Leo and Jetro, they aren't educational theorists.
Right, they're not academics.
Exactly. They're just two students trying to make sense of their daily routines. And to really understand that hidden curriculum, you can't start by looking at the chalkboard. You have to look at what happens when the students are finally released from their desks.
The in-between times.
Yes, we're talking about the interstitial spaces, the breaks, the clubs, these seemingly empty moments in between the actual classes.
And this is where the dynamic between Leo and Jetro gets so interesting, because they have completely opposite survival strategies for those interstitial spaces. Like, let's set the scene based on their conversation.
Sure.
During break time, Jetro's approach is wild and completely unstructured. He favors free play. He's out on the field playing football with his classmates, arguing over plays, chatting with his friends. It's loose, it's highly physical, and it's, entirely social.
It's pure chaos, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
Meanwhile, Leo's approach to the time outside of regular class is the exact opposite. He favors highly structured enrichment.
Yeah.
He mentions in the text that he usually reads books quietly in the library, where he joins official school clubs.
Which is very different from playing in the mud.
Very. In fact, right now, he's heavily involved in the English-speaking club.
And the mechanics of how Leo's English-speaking club operates are actually really revealing. Because it isn't just extra homework.
Right.
They meet every Thursday afternoon, they play specific games, they watch short clips together, and they have these guided discussions about different topics.
And if you look at the underlying psychology of that specific routine, Leo is accomplishing two very distinct things by showing up every Thursday.
Okay, what are they?
First, he notes that it helps him feel significantly more confident when speaking out loud, which, that's a massive hurdle for anyone at that age.
Oh, absolutely. Public speaking is terrifying.
Exactly. But second, and perhaps more importantly from a sociological standpoint, he's using it as a tool to meet new people from other classes.
He's intentionally expanding his social circle.
Yes. Beyond the 30 kids he's arbitrarily assigned to sit next to all day.
It forces you out of your default social bubble. And if you think about how we function as adults, Leo's English-speaking club is, it's basically the childhood equivalent of a corporate networking mixer.
Oh, that's a great point.
Or like a professional mastermind group. But, it's entirely stripped of that awful transactional corporate pressure.
That's a really solid parallel because in an adult networking group, you have a structured activity like maybe a guest speaker or a designated topic of the day, but everyone knows the actual hidden goal is cross-pollination.
Right. The speaker's just an excuse to be in the room.
Exactly. You're there to expand your network across different departments. That is exactly what Leo is doing on Thursday afternoons. He's using the structure of watching video clips as an excuse to cross-pollinate his social network across the school's hierarchy.
And it clearly works. Because Jetro hears this breakdown and he's immediately inspired by it. He realizes that joining a chess club or a science club sounds a lot better than just sitting in the classroom all day.
It opens his eyes to a whole new strategy.
It does.
Hmm.
But I have to admit, I kind of want to challenge Leo's highly structured approach here. Like, I get the networking aspect, I really do, but I can't help but feel like he's missing out on something crucial by staying so rigidly organized.
How do you mean?
Well, when Jetro is out playing football during his break, there's no teacher telling them what the rules are. Isn't there an entirely different, maybe more primal survival skill being built in that chaos?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a vital distinction to make because structured environments like Leo's Club, they teach you how to operate within a pre-existing framework.
Right, following the syllabus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone else set the agenda, someone else picked the video clip, and you just learn to navigate that established hierarchy. But unstructured play, like Jetro's football games, that's where you learn raw conflict resolution from the ground up.
Because there aren't any referees.
Precisely. Just imagine a controversial call on the pitch. The ball goes out of bounds. Who touched it last? Was it a foul?
And they can't just look to an adult to solve it.
Right. There is no adult there with a whistle to fix the problem. The students have to pause the game, assess the situation, and negotiate entirely on their own in real time.
Which is stressful.
Very. And if they don't compromise, the game just ends. So their desire to keep playing actually overrides their desire to be right. They are forced to practice peer mediation.
That's a massive cognitive load for a bunch of kids just trying to kick a ball around.
It's incredibly sophisticated when you break it down.
Yeah.
They have to manage the collective mood of a group, gauge social capital, and agree on a shared reality.
All before the bell rings.
Yep. So while Leo is learning structured communication in the library, Jetro is learning democratic compromise in the mud. They are both vital survival skills. They just apply to very different contexts.
Which naturally leads us to the broader implications of all this mingling and negotiating. Because in their conversation, seeing how these clubs and breaks function, it prompts Leo and Jetro to sort of zoom out and ask the ultimate question.
The big one.
Yeah. Why are we even here? What is the actual point of this massive institution?
They're transitioning from the daily micro-routines to the overarching macro philosophy of education. And again, they represent two very distinct philosophical camps on why the system exists in the first place.
So let's look at Jetro's perspective first, because he's deeply utilitarian about it. To him, school is very important purely because it helps us gain knowledge, improve our measurable abilities, and, prepare for our future careers.
It's very transactional.
Extremely. His
Yeah.
bottom line is essentially, without school, it would be very hard to get a good job.
It's the classic industrial view of the system. You input time and obedience, you extract facts and abilities, and you eventually exchange those for a paycheck.
The downloading station again.
Exactly.
But Leo counters that with a much more sociological perspective. He agrees with Jetro's basic premise, but he pushes further. He argues that school is not just about books.
Which is a profound realization for a student.
It is. Leo points out that the real curriculum is discipline, teamwork, and responsibility. He specifically lists learning how to follow rules, respect time, and, oh man, the absolute nightmare scenario for anyone who remembers it, working nicely with others on group projects.
The group project is the ultimate crucible.
It really is just trial by fire.
And what happens next in their dialogue is fascinating because they don't stay opposed on this. They actually reach a synthesis. Jetro immediately sees Leo's point.
He concedes.
Yeah, they land on the shared conclusion that building social skills by interacting with different, sometimes difficult people every single day is what truly prepares you for the quote-unquote real world.
Let's pull on that thread for a second, because I think it actually upends Jetro's initial premise altogether. He starts by saying, school is primarily for getting a job through gaining factual knowledge.
Right.
But if the end goal is a successful career, aren't the things Leo mentions, respecting time, navigating the inevitably complicated politics of a group project, aren't those actually the true hard skills of the modern workplace?
Oh, completely. It completely inverts the traditional hierarchy we're taught to believe.
Like what?
Well, we label things like physics, coding, and calculus as hard skills. And we tend to dismiss things like teamwork, empathy, and communication as soft skills.
Right, like they're optional.
Exactly. But talk to anyone managing a team today. The reason an employee struggles or fails is almost never because they forgot a mathematical formula.
Right, yeah. Nobody's getting fired because they forgot the capital of North Dakota.
They get fired because they cannot meet a deadline, which goes right back to Leo's point about respecting time.
Wow, yeah.
Or they struggle because they cannot collaborate with a colleague who has a different working style, which is the direct adult equivalent of the middle school group project.
Just with higher stakes.
Exactly. A software engineer who rates perfect code but throws tantrum every time they receive constructive feedback is a huge liability.
So true.
The actual heavy lifting of the school experience is forcing you into a room with dozens of people you didn't choose to be with and making you figure out how to coexist.
It's basically a daily simulation of civic and professional life.
It is. You have to cooperate and produce something together despite your differences.
Yeah.
That isn't a soft skill. That is the fundamental mechanic of a functioning society.
Okay, I love that framing.
Yeah.
But if school is this intense, high-pressure, mini-society-like, this daily simulation constantly forcing you to navigate group dynamics, follow rules, mediate conflicts in the mud, how does that society keep from boiling over?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, because you can't just enforce constant, unrelenting pressure without a release.
No, you'd have a mutiny on your hands. And that brings us to a crucial pivot in Leo and Jetro's conversation.
They shift gears completely.
They do. They shift from discussing the daily grind of skill building to focusing on the peak emotional experiences that actually sustain the whole operation. They start talking about their favorite day of the year.
And they both agree instantly. It's sports day. When you look at how they describe this event in the text, it's a complete sensory overload, especially compared to the quiet of the library or the strict rows of a classroom.
It's a complete departure from the norm.
Yeah, Jetro talks about everyone finally being outside. There's cheering. There are these chaotic games. Everyone is wearing these bright, colorful shirts. The energy is just electric.
And Leo says his absolute favorite part is watching the running race.
Right.
He talks about the loud shouting, the intense tribal team support, and he explicitly says it feels like a massive festival.
The stark contrast is what makes it so important, I think. We just spent all this time analyzing discipline, respecting the clock, conforming to rules.
Sitting still.
Yeah, sitting still. And then suddenly, the institution sanctions a day of loud shouting, chaotic energy, and tribalism outside on the grass.
It seems contradictory, but it's essential.
It is. The best analogy for this is like a mechanical pressure valve. Think about forcing 30 kids to sit under fluorescent lights, learning math, and following rigid behavioral rules for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
It takes a toll.
It builds a measurable psychological and biological tension. And if you just keep building up that heat and pressure, the exams, the group projects, the social anxiety, without any way to release it, the whole system will eventually fracture.
The students will burn out or rebel.
Exactly. So sports day is the pressure valve. It's loud, colorful chaos. It biologically resets their stress cycle. And without that sanctioned release, the discipline of the rest of the year wouldn't be sustainable.
That pressure valve is structurally essential just to keep the machine running. But, Leo and Jetro take it a step further than just blowing off steam.
How so?
While reflecting on that festival atmosphere, they stumble into a rather profound realization. They realize that these specific, highly charged emotional days prove that school is about much more than the homework and the textbooks.
Because Jetro literally says it's about growing up together and forging shared memories that they're going to remember forever, which is a surprisingly poignant takeaway for two students analyzing their own lives.
Well, think about your own experience. When you look back at those years, what are the things that immediately come to your mind?
Well, it's definitely not the Tuesday morning history quizzes.
Right. Not the pop quizzes. You remember the running race. You remember the color of your team shirt. You remember the chaotic football games during break.
You remember the feelings.
Exactly. The argument here is that these peak emotional moments are what forge shared memories, and those shared memories actually form the social identity of the student.
So wait, if the true lasting curriculum of our youth is actually just this collection of shared emotional memories rather than the facts we were tested on, does that mean the knowledge is just the excuse to get us in the building?
That's a radical way to look at it, but yeah.
Like the academics are just the bait, but the social friction is the actual product.
If you follow Leo and Jetro's logic to its endpoint, yes, absolutely. Leo notes at the end of their chat that this shared experience shapes who we are today.
He doesn't credit the textbooks.
No, he doesn't credit the textbooks for shaping their identities at all. He credits the shared experience of growing up alongside each other. Think of the factual knowledge, the exams, the math worksheets, as the scaffolding.
Okay.
It gives the students a necessary reason to gather in one place every single day. But the building that's actually being constructed inside that scaffolding is the social and emotional identity of the individual.
The knowledge is just the scaffolding. That fundamentally changes how you look at a classroom.
It really does. It frames the entire school experience not as an academic factory, but as a crucible for human connection. The
Uh,
chaotic games, the Thursday afternoon clubs, the screaming crowds on sports day, they aren't distractions from the real work. According to this dialogue, they are the real work.
That is just, wow, let's bring this all together because we started by looking at school as this passive waiting room we all just trudge to. But by analyzing Leo and Jetro's dialogue, we see that the school experience is brilliantly operating on two frequencies at once.
It's a dual system.
On one hand, yes, it's a factory for discipline, rules, and preparing you for a career.
But on the other hand, it's a vibrant, messy festival of human connection. It's the Thursday afternoon English clubs quietly building confidence and networking skills.
Right.
It's the noisy, refereeless football breaks teaching raw negotiation and peer mediation. And it's the roaring, colorful crowds of sports day acting as the ultimate pressure valve to keep the whole society functioning.
Every single element, whether it's sitting quietly in the library or screaming your lungs out at a running race, it serves a distinct, vital purpose in giving us the soft skills, which we now know are the true hard skills, to survive in the real world.
Exactly.
So for you listening to this right now, I want you to look at your own daily routines, whether you're navigating the politics of a corporate office, organizing things in your community, or, just managing the daily chaos of your own family. Are you balancing your rigid textbooks and rules with your own version of a colorful, loud sports day?
Have you built in a pressure valve for your own high-stakes simulation?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Because it's an important audit to do on your own life. As we've seen, without the festival, the discipline ultimately loses its meaning and just becomes completely unsustainable.
It really does. And that leaves us with one final lingering question to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive.
What's that?
Well, we've seen how the most deeply formative character-building parts of the school experience are the physical, social ones, the messy football games, the in-person clubs, the shared emotional highs of a physical race.
Right, the stuff you can't put in a textbook.
Exactly. So if the true lasting curriculum is built on those physical, shared emotional memories, how will the increasing shift toward remote, digital-first learning environments fundamentally alter the social fabric of the next generation?
Oh, that's a tough one.
When the waiting room becomes a screen, what happens to the festival?
That is a very big question.
Something for all of us to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.